Dear Johannes de Jong, Director of Sallux, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. That's great. It's great to be with you here today and to discuss this. I'm very pleased to join you. Thank you.
Thank you. You have prepared a publication at Sallux. So, what is the index of publication? What is in there?
Well, there are, with this publication, as you know, the publication European Security, Turkish Foreign Affairs, and Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. It takes a number of steps. First of all, the first step is that it explains what has happened since 2013, what Turkey has been doing since 2013. First, how it radicalized the Syrian opposition, and then how they have used the jihadists coming from that process in the several conflicts that they have been involved in since then. And then we list these conflicts up to now, and also and we explain how that is undermining European security, but also then we explain why Turkey is doing this, what the AKP ideology actually is, and how that is threatening European security. And also we show that more and more European governments are actually recognizing and acknowledging that. Now, and then we move on and say, look, there are things we have tried but didn't work, like, sanctions, or, trying a debate on pushing Turkey out of NATO. It is either didn't work or it isn't possible. And then we come with this proposal of us regarding Article 5 of the NATO Treaty that I think we will explain in more detail later. And then basically we call on activists, on parliaments and so on, to really adopt a resolution in the parliaments that focuses on this Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, and which would help to push Turkey really to the edge.
So, could you please tell us about Sallux? Very short, very briefly. What is it? And a bit information about Sallux, please. Very short, very briefly.
Fully understood. Well, Sallux is a European political foundation. It's the, so to say, the European think tank of the European Christian political movement. And well, one of the things we have been doing since 2014 is that we have been involved in the situation in northern Iraq, northern Syria, elsewhere, and which inspired us to come up with this publication, European Security, Turkish Foreign Policy, and Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. So that is basically the background of our organization and how we became part of this whole debate on the Turkish aggression.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk regarding Sallux publication of European Security, Turkish Affairs, and Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. So why did you write this publication?
Well, first of all, simply this: to help the peoples of northern Syria, northern Iraq, and everyone suffering under Turkish aggression, including a lot of people from Turkey itself, by the way. So we wrote this publication in such a way that we could make a bridge between the activists and the politicians, and at the same time provide an overview to politicians, to policymakers, of what has Turkey been doing since 2013, why, what motivates it, and most importantly, to present a real solution, or at least one real way that could help to curtail, to stop the Turkish aggression, or at least to minimize it. And that especially when it comes to the Turkish aggression outside Turkey.
What is the core of your approach? What do you propose, and why is that important?
Well, the core is very, very simple, actually. The proposals is that parliaments and hopefully also governments after that, of NATO member states will declare that Turkey will no longer be defended by that country within, from coming from the Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. So you have the NATO, obviously, and then the most important article of the NATO Treaty is Article 5. That is the article that says we will defend each other. Now, it is actually possible for parliaments to say we will not help Turkey based on Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, and therefore not help Turkey when it is attacked, as long as Turkey is having all these forces in Syria and is continuing its aggression in Iraq, etc., etc. So that would make Turkey immediately very, very vulnerable. And that would force Turkey to concentrate on its own security instead of attacking other peoples abroad.
How would the proposal for action in this publication hurt Turkey and make the Kurds safer, do you think?
Well, Turkey that would be vulnerable would be much less of a threat to everybody, outside Turkey. So that is the first purpose. It would make it much easier for other players to think about Russia, think about the Arab world, to push back against the Turkish aggression and neutralize the Turkish threat outside Turkey. And it would also then, that alone would also put a lot of pressure on the regime in Turkey itself. So it would have a double effect. We need to remember that Russia never listed the movement in the same way as the West. So same applies for other players. So other players could remind Turkey of that and say, we can push you back. So it could help, and it would help to make Turkey clear that it is at that moment when the West does not longer protect it, it would be alone in the cold and it would be vulnerable.
Why do Western politicians and their assistants need to have this kind of application? Do you think they don't know all about this?
Well, if you have an average member of parliament, right? I mean, then is a person who has a fragmented, basically understanding of what's going on in the region. They have heard something about, Turkish aggression against Northeast Syria. Most of them have heard about that. Oh, they did hear about Turkish aggression against, Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. And they can see that this is happening, but they don't see the whole picture. So this is one thing that is clear. They don't have the whole picture. And furthermore, they don't know how they could do something about it via this Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. And the one point of this approach is that it would place the whole power in the national parliaments of the member states, of the NATO member states. So civil servants in ministries of foreign affairs would no longer be able to block it. So they have been able to block a lot of measures against Turkey. The civil servants in the ministries of foreign affairs and so on. They've been able to block a lot of measures against Turkey because there is a lot of, when it comes to sanctions, for example, there's a lot of technical details. There's a lot of European level discussions where you need some kind of compromise. When it comes to this approach, it's very simple. It's a statement, it's a resolution that a parliament can adopt, and there will be no way that it can be blocked or ignored by any civil servant.
What needs to get done to ensure that this will really work?
Well, three things actually. First of all, we hope that this publication will be spread among activists in NATO member states, and that they will read it and will really get in touch with members of parliament and their assistants who are already concerned about what Turkey is doing and about the Kurdish situation, for example, or the Syriac-Assyrian situation, or the Armenian situation. I mean, this is the same for all these peoples. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, for example, they could organize some webinar around this issue, and we're happy to be part of that and to explain how this actually works and so on, so that they can not only get the understanding, but also how to push this forward. And essentially, ultimately, we hope that activists in these NATO member states will push resolutions in the parliaments, together with members of parliament that they are working with already. A resolution, for example, that would state that if Turkey will be attacked, it will be no longer receive protection from that member state based on Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. And that this will be the case until Turkey withdraws from Syria and Iraq and so on and so forth, and ends its aggression abroad. I think it's important to understand one thing here. NATO itself makes it very clear that Article 5 of the NATO Treaty can be approached in the way we are suggesting in our publication. In our publication, we explain that. Our approach is actually based on the interpretation of Article 5 of the NATO Treaty that is provided by NATO itself. So we are not inventing something new or something that is not legal. We are basically presenting something that is already on the website of the NATO itself, namely how to interpret and to use and to understand Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. And what we are suggesting is that parliaments will act accordingly. So it's not that we say, pull Turkey out of, throw Turkey out of the NATO, which is legally not possible, or, push another package of sanctions, which will never be approved at the European level or by the US in the degree that is necessary. What we are proposing is something that is actually achievable. We all know, we have all seen the demonstrations of the activists and concerned peoples in front of the National Parliament of Berlin. And we have all seen these many times, these protests in front of the European Parliament or the National Parliament of the Netherlands or whatever. And we have all seen it didn't work. Nobody is doing anything. But a lot of times it is also because the members of parliament just don't know anymore what they actually can do that would really work and could not be blocked by some civil servants in the ministries of foreign affairs. Now, this is it. That's why we are proposing this, because this is something that is legal, it's achievable, it's doable, it's possible, and it would be popular, because you cannot explain to the European electorates or the American electorates, oh yeah, of course, we will still defend this Turkish dictatorship that is, putting European security under threat and is rampaging all this aggression against these innocent peoples across the region. You cannot explain that anymore to the European electorate. So we see this also as a contribution to European security. It is not just that it would help Kurds and Syriacs and Armenians and so on, and Greek. It would also contribute to the security of Europe itself.
Dear Journo de Jong, Director of Sallux, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your comments today.
Well, thank you for having me again, and again, thank you for having me. And well, it has been a pleasure, and hope we speak again one time.
Thank you.